You're now live. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another Sync In Sessions. Today we have a really, really exciting topic, one of my favorites. Today's topic is going to be womb wisdom, and we're going to go a little bit longer than usual. I'm really excited to dive into the topic of womb wisdom today. We're going to be joined by a lovely old friend of mine, Savannah, who's also been doing this work and is awakening to her priestess pathway. And here she is coming to join us. Hello!
How are you, Joes?
I'm good, and you? Oh, it's been so long.
Yes, thank you for having me here today. I'm so excited.
Oh yeah, me too, me too. Thank you for being here. Such a juicy topic,
Yeah.
and I honestly got so excited. So I already introduced the topic, and I got so excited when I saw that you're also starting to do this work and like really starting to feel the call of the priestess pathway, which is such an ancient path, and it's so beautiful how our DNA is just like starting to remember this, and remember these ancient callings and these ancient pathways and purposes.
hmm Exactly. A remembrance of what already exists within us, this ancient wisdom that we can return to. It's not even learning, it's a remembrance of that which already exists within us.
Exactly. So let's just dive straight in. I want to ask you, what is your personal like definition of the term womb wisdom, and what does that mean to you?
Mm. I see our womb space as this sacred inner sanctuary, this place that we can return to at any point in time that is, this beautiful compass, a connection to our intuition, a
Mm,
source of guidance. She is also our connection to the sacred feminine, and
mm,
it as a place that we can always return to within ourselves, of deep peace, of deep nourishment. And unfortunately, we live in a society that doesn't really support our connection to the sacred space, so we can become very distant from her. And I see womb wisdom as a process of learning about the body, remembering her intuitive rhythms, her deep wisdom, and tuning into that and allowing that to guide the way we live and to live intuitively according to our womb space.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh, I got like goosebumps hearing you speak. Um,
Mm.
so powerful. And really this work also has only come to me within the last like 2 years or so, 2.5 years. And it's really like the amount of healing that I've seen in my own journey and in my own body and my relationship to myself and my relationship to my feminine essence has honestly like like quantified in so many ways since I started incorporating womb wisdom. It was almost like womb wisdom was the key to that secret door that I didn't know I needed, and like obviously being on the self-healing path and like being a self-healer, there's so many different aspects that we can look at within the self, within the psyche, within the body. But womb wisdom really helped catapult my healing journey like tenfold, and I've really been able to transmute things so much faster when being in alignment with my womb and with my rhythms. And I'm sure like the what brought me to this pathway was like a deep disconnection that really facilitated the reconnection. I don't know if you know, and some people may know, but I was on the pill for 7 years, which meant that I didn't have a period for 7 years. And I didn't realize how disconnected that was making me from myself, and I was so fucking anxious all the time, and I didn't realize why. And then when I started to dive into this work, I realized that the womb is such a deeply grounding force that when her life force is activated, she can really help bring that mental overload of energy down into the body, and we can help process it through our menstruation, through the cycles of the seasons, and through these these changes that we go through, you know, because we're not the same woman every single day. We're different, and that's the beauty, I think, about embracing womb wisdom, is that you get to show up in an embodied way, but that embodied way doesn't have to look the same every day.
Exactly.
Maybe you want to speak a little bit about your journey into womb wisdom and finding this work.
During my teens, I was completely disconnected from my cycles. And after a medical intervention that I'm not going to elaborate on now, but it messed up my body's rhythms, and I would go for up to a year without menstruating at all, and then occasionally have the odd irregular cycle, and then go again for months without menstruating. And at the time, I saw this as a convenience. I saw this as, you know, like it's something I didn't have to worry about. And it was this complete disconnection from the sacred power that lives within me. And it wasn't until much later, years later, that I regained my cycles. And I read Woman Code by Elisa Vitti, and she speaks all about cyclical living and connecting with the different seasons of our cycles, and how we can maximize the gifts of each phase of our cycle. There are certain times for that outward energy. There are also times for rest, and we are disconnected when we're working against our body's rhythms, and we can just have such a full life when we tune into that wisdom and we live in alignment with that. It was so powerful because it shifted everything. Suddenly this is a beautiful inner guidance system rather than an inconvenience, or it's only, we only perceive it as an inconvenience because we don't know how to honor what it is. We are disconnected from it.
Totally. And it's almost like a negative feedback loop, because the more you don't honor your womb, the more she's going to scream at you to wake up to her power, you know. And like, that's what I really see like menstrual cramps as. It's like the womb trying to speak to the body. The womb is trying to speak to your psyche, to ask you to pay attention to her, you know. And I've also experienced cramps in the past, and I, through this work, have been able to heal my period cramps and actually fall in love with the process of bleeding, which is really something that is not commonly spoken about. And it's really interesting what you said, because you said you had a medical intervention, and like, so did I. You know, I had a cyst on my ovary, and that had to be operated. And that was like my body's way of like screaming at me, you know, like, pay attention, pay attention. And so I'm really trying to help people see their symptoms as a communication and a message from the body's wisdom, you know, rather than their body being against them. It's like your body is trying to work with you and come back to balance, because that's what the body wants to do. It wants to be in homeostasis, and it wants to always come back to balance. And so it's going to do whatever it needs to get you to pay attention to whatever you're not consciously looking at, you know. And I think that's why so many women experience burnout, experience menstrual cramps, experience like very heavy periods, very like intense times, you know. And all of that is it's fixable. It's really, really fixable through natural holistic processes, through meditation, through deep connection, through cyclical living, you know. And that's what I think has really awakened my drive to want to teach women about this, because there is a possibility of you enjoying your period. And like, that's not something that many people understand. They're like, what do you mean? Like, I don't, you know, they don't understand that that's an enjoyable process, you know. it's like so foreign to them.
Yeah.
It's so foreign, and it's like it's also taken me obviously like 2 years to get to this point, but like now I love bleeding so much because I see it as such a beautiful time to come into alignment with my womb space, and also that process of resting like you were saying, and also just the deep insights that we can get during that time, because our crown chakra to our root chakra is completely open, and if we are still enough, we can receive deep downloads and deep insights and deep wisdom from the divine and from our own untapped ancestral wisdom.
Exactly. And there, in ancient women's wisdom across cultures, there is the belief that during our bleed, the veils between worlds are thinner. So it is a time to really tune in and connect. And by creating ritual around that, that was something that really healed my perspective of menstruation. Is creating these beautiful rituals around that space. It is a time to slow down, to go into my womb cave, to really tune in, to connect, to meditate more, to ask for guidance. And having this superpower that lives within us completely shifts the way you perceive it. It is a heightened time of intuitive knowing. And something that have recently found to be so life-changing is the issues that come up. We are a lot more sensitive around the time of our bleed, so certain things just feel a lot bigger, or something that happened like 2 months ago suddenly feels a lot more important. And previously I used to disregard this, thinking I'm just hormonal, or I'm just sensitive right now. But actually, when you look at those repeated issues that come up, or that particular sore point in a relationship, or that maybe it's like a challenge in your relationship with yourself, that is something that needs to be addressed, something that needs to be allowed, made space for, because we have this heightened sensitivity at this time, which is so beautiful, because it just gets rid of all the illusions, all the filters, and really shows us what needs to be looked at. And when you look at what menstruation is, it's literally the shedding, the release, and it is there what needs to be addressed and what needs to be released.
Totally, totally. And I feel like many women don't understand how cathartic the process of bleeding is, and I always write down, when I bleed, I always write down intentions, and I like really consciously try to work with like what needs to be addressed, like you said, like what really needs to be released. And you can really use that cathartic process of bleeding as an example, as a process for releasing the emotional, mental turmoil that may be coming up. And it's so easy because we're so sensitive during our bleed, like you said, that the rest of our cycle, it's a lot easier to like push things away and push things down, but because when we're bleeding, we are actually we're below the surface, we're in that deep dark womb cave, and so all the things that we may find uncomfortable or hard to deal with are sitting in that deep dark room, and so when we go there, they're like, hey yo, like remember me, like don't forget about this pattern and that thing and like that thing that you're avoiding. And it's like, it's such a beautiful like we laugh now, but it's usually pretty like intense, and like yeah, it's like a beautiful way of doing shadow work, I guess, on like a regular basis, and to use that process of like, cool, I'm doing shadow work for this time, and like I'm really utilizing my body's processes to further enhance that shadow work, and the because it all sits below the surface, and when we dive below the surface, things want to come up, they want to be released, they want to, and so nothing like wants to stay with you if it doesn't belong with you, if it's not part of your divine blueprints. And I think the more we embrace our cycles, the more we can embrace that like menstruation is a time for doing shadow work. It is a time for, looking at maybe having some uncomfortable conversations, having some, challenging conversations with yourself as well.
Exactly. It's like a monthly check-in, a time to get really real with yourself and have a look. And that's a beautiful thing. The intensity of it, and often the yeah, the emotions around it can feel very tender because we are in that space. But
Mm,
that's so beautiful because it has to happen at some point. So you might as well
mm,
tune to the natural rhythm of that and
mm,
work with
mm.
your.
Totally. What did I want to say now? I wanted to speak back on like ritual. Oh, what I wanted to say was that because like when you cycle consciously, the more you do it, like it becomes easier every time. And that's kind of what I've realized is like now, like I don't have as many hectic emotions coming up during my bleed because I'm keeping, you know, in the womb space, it's like your home. You have to upkeep it. You have to do DIY, you know, you have to like do the housekeeping of that space on a regular basis. Otherwise things just build up and then they keep you blocked. And so what I've realized is when you consciously cycle and you consciously address your womb space during your menstruation time, you know, you start to clear away a lot of density, a lot of emotion, a lot of trauma through that cathartic process of bleeding. And so eventually after you've cleared away like the blocks of the past, the traumas of the past, you start to work with more what's happening in your present, you know. And if your present is filled with alignment, then your bleeds are actually a lot easier, you know, and you're creating, it's a lot easier process. And that's what I've kind of realized is that now, like, I actually get very energized when I'm on my bleed because I'm also like, I've cleared away so much density and I've gone through those challenging, like crying on the floor for 3 day kind of periods, you know, like we all have to go there. And it's a beautiful experience to be with yourself and those intense emotions. But once you do that work, it's not like this happens forever, you know. You start to get to the light, higher vibrational energy that your period can give you when you're bleeding. I don't know if that's something you've noticed.
Absolutely. And I think of if you think about what a bleed is, it is this flow of energy. Where are we stagnating? Because those are the places that we are going to have pain, whether that is an emotional thing, whether that is physical. When we start to clear all these different things, exactly like you were saying, going into our shadows or working with certain things that we've been avoiding, we clear up that channel. So energetically things can flow, and that just creates so much more ease. And as you, I loved what you said about housekeeping. It's so true though, because when we clear up that channel, things get easier and easier, and then it's only small hiccups here and there rather than all the stuff that needs to move.
Totally, totally. And I feel like we also, because you know, we come, unfortunately, like we come from generations previously, they weren't embodied bleeders, you know. Women have been disconnected from their cycle for many years. And so when we cycle consciously and have embodied menstrual cycles, we are actually releasing for not only ourselves but for our ancestors and for our maternal lineage and all the women who came before us that could not have that freedom and who could not be empowered in their menstrual cycle like that, you know. And so it's really deep work because we are not only healing ourselves, but we're doing it for all the women that came before us, as well as all the women that come after us, you know, because any ancestral trauma that we are clearing and healing and releasing, it's not going to impact our future children, you know. And I think that's a really beautiful intention to connect with every time you may have a difficult bleed, or every time there's things coming up to the surface that may be challenging or hard to look at, is like have that greater perspective of like, this isn't just for you, it's for, you know, like the generations before and after, which I think is super powerful to connect to.
Absolutely. And the women around us, because as we feel into this process for ourselves and we share about it and we talk about these kinds of things, there is this sisterhood that resonates with that. And because menstruation and our bleed is such a taboo topic, it's something that so many women don't speak about. So they go through these processes, these challenges on their own,
Mm,
inside. They don't know
mm,
what's normal. They don't know what it feels like to be disconnected or connected to their womb space.
mm. Yeah, and it's so sad because it creates that shame, you know. And I was speaking in my women's circle last night about how shame is an inorganic emotion. It's not a natural emotion. It's not a natural construct within the body. And so shame is only something that can be placed on us from an external force, you know, whether that be society, a parent, a guardian, you know, someone saying something one time, you know, and that shame, we internalize it and we make it as if that is something that belongs to us, you know. And so really this process of rediscovering our menstrual cycles is releasing the shame that we no longer have to hold on to, you know, because it wasn't ours to hold on to in the first place.
It's something we have been taught, but it's also something we can unlearn. And that's
Exactly.
the beauty of it.
Exactly. Exactly. And so much of the time I realized that the discomfort or the cramps that women feeling around their menstruation time is just that unprocessed shame in the body. You know, it's just because a lot of the time we have these conscious beliefs, and even if we're like, cool, I love my period now, like maybe subconsciously you're not embodying that love. And so your subconscious still feels disconnected from the process of menstruation. And so that's why it's so important to be embodied and do these embodiment practices and meditate and like connect to that life force energy, because then it can start to become an embodied process, and you can start to live that love for your cycle, you know. And so often I find that the disconnection and the cramps and the pain that women experience during their period is just subconscious shame, you know, and subconscious disconnection and subconscious hatred towards their period that was programmed into them from society, you know.
And it's so important to check in with ourselves regularly and think, is
Mm.
this true for me, or is this something I've been told? Is this a fear of how someone will perceive my bleed in our
Oh, sorry, I'm back.
back? So you circling that for a second. Can you hear me?
My time limit came up. Yeah.
Is it fine now?
Yeah, sorry. Carry on what you were saying. Sorry, love.
Um, I was saying how often when we check in with ourselves, we can
Mm,
see things are not ours. We're carrying
mm,
stuff not ours, and it's so
mm,
important to check in with that, because even when we get to a point of like loving our cycles and being really in tune with our bodies, these things still come up. It doesn't mean it's done
totally,
and that work is clear. Like things will
totally.
pop up and make you reassess your relationship with your bleed, with your shame around it,
Mm,
with partners. It's a continual process.
totally. Totally. And because our womb is like a sponge, you know, it's like it absorbs all the emotional energy of the body, whether that be high vibrational energy or low vibrational energy, you know. And even like going through different periods of our lives, you know, like just because like you said we're speaking, it doesn't mean that we are 100% perfect, you know. Healers are always just the people who go first. They're not people who
Yeah.
are perfect. We're not like, we're just trying to embody where we want to get to. We're not perfect, you know. And even I've had experiences in the past where I've had issues around like feminine friendships, and like immediately I tell the stress my body by my bleed, because I was then spotting for like 3 months, you know. And it's also that like, you know, my body subconsciously felt rejected by the feminine, you know, and therefore then that rejection of the feminine translates to that internal rejection of the feminine, you know. And that and the deepest process of the feminine is to bleed, you know, and to support life. So if we're having challenges around the feminine, it's going to be reflected in our cycle. And actually any challenges that we're having in life, you know, whether it be mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, because it's so beautiful to see that, because um, the cycle is really a beautiful indication of our health, you know, whether that be all aspects of health. And we can look at our cycle as like you know, like a guidance system, you know, like really a map to like what needs to be looked at. Because If your hormones are imbalanced, your cycle is going to show that. If you're experiencing stress, your cycle is going to show that. If you're experiencing health issues, your cycle is going to show that. If you're experiencing like relationship drama, your cycle is going to show that, you know. And so it's a beautiful way to get intimate with the messages of your body and what's going on internally, you know.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Even
it's beautiful.
color, the consistency, the textures, like all this kind, like how often you bleed, how much you're bleeding, whether it's light or heavy, you know, all these different factors are beautiful indications.
Mm. And it's, I think, a really important message to send out to women who are on this journey is that it does get better. As
Mm.
you get more in tune with your body, as you learn to listen to her rhythms, it gets better and better. And I've been in a place where I felt so disconnected from my body or experiencing really painful symptoms that were unpleasant and made me dread that time of the month, which in turn then makes it worse because this, like, as you're saying, this feedback loop, to a place now where it's something I celebrate.
Mm.
And as we progress along that journey and deepen our connection with our bleed, with our cyclical nature, there's so much beauty to be found there, and so much self-connection, and the
Mm.
bond that you create with yourself is
Oh,
unshakable.
oh, it's so powerful. Like I literally, oh, my heart chakra just exploded when you said that because it's so true. And like, you feel like you get to know yourself on such a deep level, you know, and I think that's echoed through the womb's connection. And the womb and the heart are these two sacred feminine portals. And so when we connect with our heart and we cultivate that self-love, we can then drop that down and send that down to our womb space and cultivate more compassion, I think, for ourselves when we are going through those difficult times, you know, and when we're experiencing challenging periods. So let's speak about some of your favorite rituals, because I love bleed rituals. Like they're my favorites.
Um, well, firstly, it would be slowing down for sure. I think that is the most important thing. And when you look at the seasons of the menstrual cycle, our bleed is our inner winter, which
Hmm.
is hibernation, the time of retreat. And I love to schedule my life around this. I'm blessed to have quite a flexible lifestyle that I can, you know, schedule commitments and social activities and things outside of this time so that it is a time to really sink into my womb cave, connect with myself, and conserve energy. I think that is the most important thing, is that it's a time where your energy should be directed towards you, because you don't have that excess energy to be giving to other people. And it's that time to top up your own cup so that when you emerge from your womb cave, you have more to give to every other aspect of your life.
Hmm. Hmm. And I've actually noticed that when the more you rest during your bleed, the more energy you actually have for the rest of your cycle.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think journaling is another really important one. As we were speaking about earlier, this heightened time of intuition, the thoughts and feelings and things that are coming up, make a note of that, because I've found that to be such a real check-in about those different issues. And then often these things come back later and you think, ah, I knew, because I was at this heightened point of connection to myself. And it is beautiful, the insights that we can receive during this time. So journaling, meditation, and also the like softness and tenderness of this time we can create in our environment. Lighting candles, a beautiful bath,
Mm.
fabrics that allow our body to move. It's the point of your cycle where you least want to be restricted or in tight clothing or
Mm.
anything like that. So to really honor your body in that way, um, by slowing down, softening, making your environment really receptive and
Mm.
supportive.
And nourishing, yeah. Another big thing is cooking yourself nourishing food.
Yes.
Being nourishing meals and like high protein and high fat and just like getting it in your body, because that's what your body is craving during that time. And if you're someone that doesn't feel like cooking while you're on your bleed, like pre-plan, you know, and really like use that planning and organization as a self-care tool, you know, so that when you're on your period you can just go pop something in the oven and it's done, you know. And so you don't need to spend hours.
I'd love to hear yours.
Yes, someone actually just asked a question. Do you women use your moon blood for sacred rituals? Yes, let's talk about that because I love using blood for rituals. So one of my favorite rituals actually is I collect my blood in use a moon cup, or if you use reusable pads, you can also just soak them in water and then wring them out and collect the blood that way. But if you want your pure blood, you need to kind of dilute it. And then what I love doing is I'll put it into a jar and I'll hold the jar in front of my womb. And I kind of just imagine all the intentions that I'm working with of releasing on that cycle. I kind of just imagine them moving from my womb into the blood and like everything I'm trying to release. And then I go and like give it to my vegetable plants, or my house plants. Like that's one of my favorite rituals because it also connects you so much deeper to the earth, and it becomes that beautiful cyclical relationship with the earth, where it's like you're giving to the earth and the earth is giving back to you through these beautiful vegetables, through these beautiful flowers, through these like thriving plants. So that's one of my favorite rituals. Another one of my favorite rituals, like you said, journaling. And then I also love face masks, blood face masks. I really, really love this. I think it's a beautiful way to get more intimate with your blood, because a lot of the conditioning that we've had is that like menstrual blood is dirty, which is like so far from the truth. This is life force giving blood. This blood was meant to grow a human. Therefore, it's now, like being used in a different way. And we need to respect that power is still in this blood. So I love using it as a face mask. I really have cleared up a lot of my skin issues from doing this, because it's also so high in nutrients. So your skin really absorbs all those nutrients. And then when I'm on the face mask, you have the face mask, I really just like time to meditate and lie with my womb and connect and like breathe into her and just feel whatever she's kind of trying to speak to me about. And then another favorite one of my rituals is self-womb massage. So just taking some coconut oil and some essential oils and mixing it all together and just giving yourself like a pelvis massage, really massaging into the cramps if you're feeling that, massaging into any discomfort, and really like using the combination of breath, touch, and sound. Also, sound is huge because our womb and our throats are connected. The more we can, use these tantric principles of movement, breath, sound, we can actually move a lot of stagnant energy.
Exactly. And that is one of my favorite points of conversation, the yoni throat connection. Because if you think about it, when you are feeling unsafe or uncomfortable or restricted in some way, think of how your throat closes up. You're completely blocked in your expression. The same way, when we feel unsafe or uncomfortable or unsupported, it's the same in our yoni. And these are our two places of expression, to receive and to release energy. And it is so important to have that fluid movement there. And I love what you're saying about those 2 points, because that is such a very interconnected. The two are so interconnected, and we often don't see them in that way. And as we do womb work, we find that like it comes up in our expression. Suddenly we're able to communicate better, and this, of course, in turn affects our relationships in a really positive way, especially in relationships where you are sharing both your expression and your womb space with a partner.
Totally. And a lot of the tension that we can feel in our pelvis can be also reflected in tension in the jaw. And I don't know if people know this, but basically when we are in the womb as babies, we form like this, and then we start to slowly like stretch apart, and like one side is the throat and one side is the pelvis. And so there's like these microfibril muscle tissue that actually connects these two places. And that's why like sounding is such an amazing process to release energy, especially during lovemaking. It's honestly like it can catapult your experience of pleasure so profoundly that when you actually allow yourself to express, you know, and don't hinder your own expression.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. What you're saying about in the womb, the vocal cords and ovaries start as the same organ and then it splits, which I just find fascinating because
Yeah.
from when we are in utero, there is that connection. And we forget about this as we, when we're in our bodies because we see them as two disconnected parts, but really it is they're mirrors of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Sounding is such a powerful place to check in with ourselves around shame because that's something that often comes up where you think, oh, I'm uncomfortable, even in like non-sexual spaces, to like when you're enjoying a really good meal to go like to like how often
Yeah.
do we hold back these ways of expressing ourselves.
Totally, totally. Even when we're dancing, like as well, you know, and dancing is one of my all-time favorite womb healing practices. Like you do not understand the power that you generate in your pelvis when you dance. And I don't just mean like swaying, I mean like actually moving your hips. And really, like, I think this is a beautiful practice that women can really, if they're starting to explore their sensuality, you know, and explore that womb connection, is really just dancing and moving your hips, and moving your hips in an essential way that you may feel uncomfortable to do in public, you know, and really dancing as if no one is watching. And um yeah, like getting into the juiciness that is your hips and really feeling like, how do my hips want to move today? Maybe they're a little bit stiff. Maybe I need to just breathe into them a little bit more. Maybe they're open and I want to go a little bit wild, you know, and just really like, I feel like it's such a powerful place to embrace that inner slut archetype, you know, and just like feeling that like sensuality and turn on for no one else but yourself, and like empowering yourself through like that inner slut archetype. I really love working with, and that's what I love about womb wisdom, is it's like we get to play with so many different archetypes, you know, like at all points of our cycle. And it's like an embracing of the many different aspects of being a woman, of being an embodied feminine creature, you know.
Yes. And getting into the body in a pleasure-filled, playful way. You're out of your
Mm,
mind, really just feeling into that. And that is a place where deep connection to self happens because we
mm,
often think these things. And that's not embodied. You're not really feeling into it in a somatic way. And it just
mm,
that playfulness back to it, that innocence, yeah, the innocent pleasure of it, that is our birth,
mm,
you know?
mm,
We see
mm,
these often or like experience shame around them or discomfort, awkwardness with like other people observing this. Like to do it for you and to enjoy it, and then to be able to have that like ripple effect as you become more comfortable with yourself, it's going to be
mm.
expanding, is so, so powerful.
Totally. And like, you know, when you see someone having a good time, the likelihood of you to judge them is so small, because you're mostly just like, wow, that person's really living their best life. Like, wow, like I wish I could be them right now. Like they're looking like they're having so much fun, you know? And I think that's like that ripple effect that you're speaking about, because when one woman is embodying her truth and embodying her sensual, playful nature, it gives permission, it gives a permission slip to every single other woman to embrace that energy within herself, you know. And I think that's that beautiful ripple effect, because I also believe that our wombs speak to each other. I don't know if you like believe this as well, but I believe that like you are even if you're with friends who aren't spiritual, like naturally spiritual or whatever, like your womb will speak to their womb, even if they don't know that, you know? And like, I'm always like, oh, I wonder what my womb's saying. And like, I've had friends come and see me, and like, they have my one friend, she's on the Mirena, and she hadn't had her period for like 2 years. And she came to see me and she started bleeding the next day. And I was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like, this is insane. Like I knew my womb was probably speaking to yours in like some kind of way. And yeah, there's subconscious energies that are communicating between like my aura and your aura and our fields all the time.
Absolutely. And when you think about it, we are just these little microcosms of the bigger. If you think of Gaia's womb space, that creative life force, that creative energy, we have a little piece of that within us, which is all interconnected. And so, of course, it is natural that we would have that energetic and vibrational connection to other women.
Totally. I just quickly want to go back to the womb as like a guidance system, because what I've noticed is that a lot of women, myself included, while they were on birth control, their ability to how do I put this? Their ability to have strong boundaries isn't really there. Like, it's not really the intuitive sense of whether someone is safe or not is not really there. And so a lot of women, from what I've seen in my circles while on birth control, actually choose partners that end up being toxic relationships, or end up being really destructive, not really soul-fulfilling relationships. And that's by no one's fault of their own, but it's just amazing to kind of see this correlation between like regaining the womb wisdom and regaining that intuition around the boundaries and the self-awareness, and like how it feels to be with someone, you know, and knowing like from that intuitive space, like, is this person a safe partner? Like, do I want to open myself sexually to them? Do I want to open myself to a relationship with them? I don't know if this is something you'd seen or focused on.
I've heard that when women are on birth control, we are unable to detect male pheromones. We would just that, which naturally that would be a very big guiding factor in how we would choose a partner. So on a biological level, there is that like instinctive part that we disconnect from. And I think on a more like emotional, energetic level, when we really connect with our womb, we receive guidance and like intuitive wisdom that, like, I'm at a point now where I receive guidance. I don't question it. I don't try and find a justification. If it feels wrong in my body, it's wrong. It's as simple as that. And I think when you are on birth control, this may be a way to explain it because I haven't heard it expressed in the way that you have, but I think it could tie in. You're disconnected from that deep wisdom because, of course, there is an aspect of hormonal suppression. Our body is being regulated by something outside of us. It's not our natural rhythm. So maybe in turn, it suppresses that deep wisdom that would otherwise indicate that something is wrong.
Totally, I agree. And I feel like we become more prone to like acting for the sake of others rather than like for the sake of our own compass, you know, and we base our validation. Like, this is something I did. I'm speaking from personal experience here, but this is something that I did. Like, I found that when I was on birth control and disconnected from my womb space, so much of my validation was placed on how other people saw me, was placed on like how pretty I felt, or how good I felt I looked, or how fashionable I dressed, or like how, you know, it was a very external surface level feminine value. Whereas like when we start to work with the womb, we go fucking deep, you know, and it's that deep feminine current. And so that cannot be validated by any surface level bullshit. It cannot be, put to the test. And I think that's what's hard for a lot of people to understand, is a lot of these things are very intuitive. They're very deep from within the body. They're not mental concepts. And so we cannot understand them with our minds alone. They have to be embraced from within and felt from within as a lived experience.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Oh, wow, beautiful. Before we wrap up, I just want to chat quickly about, so we've chatted about, there are many different aspects of womb healing, which is like really amazing. Savannah and I could talk for like another hour, you know, about like all of this stuff, because there's so much that comes with healing your relationship to your womb. You know, you have the embodied bleeding and healing your relationship to your cycle. You have the awakening to your just like to the power of connection between self, universe, and earth. you know, that beautiful connection and seeing yourself as an extension of the earth. And then you have also you are awakening your pleasure center, because the womb is the feminine pleasure center. And I mean, I thought I knew what an orgasm was when I was on the pill, but holy shit, when I came off the pill, like, the levels of pleasure that you start to discover from within are actually mind-blowing, you know. And like, you realize all these hormones that the pill or birth control is suppressing are actually so needed to make you feel wet, to make you feel turned on, to make you feel horny, to make you feel like sensually activated, to make you feel connected to yourself, to make you feel ready for intimacy with a partner, you know, and also intimacy with ourselves, because that's a huge taboo, you know. Female self-pleasure is really something I'm passionate about, helping women start to transform that relationship with themselves, you know, and start to realize that, like, this is another aspect of shame that's been placed on you. And so healing that societal shame around female self-pleasure, like, also starts to liberate you in such deep ways.
Yes, absolutely. And that is it's a practice of connecting to the self, a practice of really tuning into your body, your desires, your pleasure is something that is actually so innocent. It is your birthright. And there's this horrible stigma around it where it becomes something that's hushed or something that we shouldn't talk about. And then it becomes this silenced thing that we can't share our stories, we can't connect with others about it. And then we feel bad for doing it, or you feel like, you know, should I be doing this? When really it is your birthright to connect with yourself in that way, and to experience the joy of your body, because that in turn has so many ripple effects. You know, when you deepen your connection with self in like a pleasure aspect, it affects other aspects of your life. Like, pleasure is the ability to receive, if you think about it in that way. Receiving pleasure from self, receiving pleasure from a partner. There are many aspects of our lives that have this receptive energy. So when you look at, for example, abundance, financial abundance, abundance of love and compliments and affection from people, when you block, you know, for example, if a friend compliments you, do you immediately like disregard it or block it? Because it's probably going to be reflected in your relationship with your sexual pleasure, where you're blocking it some way. Or financial.
Totally. Totally. It's so beautiful. And like, the more, like we spoke about in the beginning, the more you clear that density from your womb, the more energy your womb can hold, the more orgasmic energy your womb can hold, the more life force energy, you know, and that can start to build up, and you can start to really reach depths of pleasure that you didn't even know was possible, you know. And I mean, we're all working through these blocks that have been placed on us from the external society, and it's beautiful to go through that process with compassion, with softness, with gentleness, and, you know, like, really see self-pleasure as a self-care practice, you know, because also when we are in pleasure, it is so much harder to have limiting beliefs and to really allow that negativity to come to the surface when we are feeling pleasure in our body, you know, because it all comes from that embodied place. And then we can also start to explore, like, the sexual relationship, not only with ourselves, but also with others, you know. And like, we need to be able to know what we want from ourselves before we can expect a partner to give that to us, you know. And I think long gone are the days when, like, you know, like, men are just supposed to know what to do, you know. Like, I feel like that's so unfair, you know. And so it's like put so much pressure on them to like get us off, when it's like, bro, that's your responsibility. Like, your turn on is your responsibility. And it's like beautiful to communicate that. And like, that's that yoni throat connection again coming up, is like, if you can feel something in your yoni and in your womb, communicate it with your partner, you know, communicate, this is what I desire, this is what I don't like, this is my boundaries around this is, I don't feel like I need to have boundaries around that, you know. It becomes like this beautiful, playful, like, experience, and we can really start to like have a lot of fun with it, you know, and realize that pain and pleasure are just a spectrum, because there's been many times where I've been intimate with my partner and I've been feeling a lot of pain, and then I just connect with my heart, I breathe into my womb, and bam, that pain turns into an orgasm, you know, and that pain turns into pleasure, and like I'm being blasted through the roof again in terms of like where I feel I am, you know. But it's that we need to start to have that more engaged relationship with pain and engaged relationship with pleasure, because the ability for one to turn to the other is a lot more malleable than we have been taught to believe.
And also honoring what pain is saying to you, because it is always a form of communication. And sometimes when experiencing pain in our yoni, it is a sign that we're doing something too soon. Either we're not fully comfortable with this person, or there's some block or some energetic, maybe an emotional thing that you have unresolved with that person that is not up in this way, or maybe it's tension in the body about something else. And to really, like you're saying, like tuning into your heart and connecting with what is this communicating with me. Like, I think it can be quite a, you know, many people will dissociate or numb from that place, which is a coping mechanism, and it is a way of relieving that discomfort. But there are also ways of leaning into it and really saying, what is this asking us? What is this here to show us? And there you can, there's so much beauty to be found in that space, because maybe you're just feeling rushed, or maybe you're not comfortable yet, which is absolutely fine. Take whatever time you need, or maybe you just need more time to warm up. That is also a perfectly valid reason to slow down.
Totally. And I feel like there's so much pressure on us to like get turned on very quickly, you know, whereas like it actually takes 40 minutes for the female body to be turned on, like 40 minutes of foreplay. And if you're with someone who isn't respectful of that, then they shouldn't deserve to be with you in that way, you know. It's like, you are about to enter the yoni temple, like, are you ready? You know, like, take your shoes off, cover your shoulders, like bow down and fucking pray, because you are about to enter the temple of goddess goodness. The end. Goodbye.
So true. And I think as we deepen our connection with our womb space, I find the womb to be a very powerful place of discernment. She will tell you when something is up, when
that's about the thing.
And it's so powerful to really tune into what she is communicating with you about different things. It could be something completely unrelated or seemingly unrelated to your sexuality and your womb space, or it could be within that space. And to really honor what she is communicating with you is powerful, because when you really connect with your womb space and you start to honor her for what she is, like, you think about this intimacy, we are sharing our body with another human being. You're sharing, like, you're the temple is being shared with another human being. They are sharing your energy, they are sharing the sacred space within you. And with that should come discernment. We should really be looking at, is this person coming into that space from a place of love, from a place of connection? Do they respect me? Do they honor my boundaries? And that is such an empowering and like a mindset shift about the way that we can honor ourselves, because I think our sexuality, we can express in so many different ways, and to each woman that's going to look completely different. But it's about checking in with yourself about what feels honoring to you, and seeing what feels really resonant with you and what doesn't feel good, and knowing where to draw those lines.
Totally. And approaching maybe the uncomfortable spaces from a space of gentleness, you know, because no comfort zone was ever expanded through force, you know. I think that's a really huge thing we need to learn is that, like, we
Mm.
need to do things slowly and gently and with a lot of compassion, you know. And if we want to reach new comfort zones and reach new heights and reach new states of pleasure, we need to do things gently. And that's why I'm also so encouraging of, like, there's no such thing as going backwards, you know. There's no, like, sex isn't a linear progression. It's not like you need to go somewhere to somewhere. It's about the journey, you know. And if you are feeling uncomfortable, like, you can go back to just kissing or to just touching or to just, like, staring into each other's eyes. Is such a beautiful tantric practice of just
Yes.
connecting on that soul level, you know. And so there's no, like, backwards or forwards. So don't ever feel afraid of, like, asking your partner, can we slow down? Can we stop? Can we take a break? Can we, you know, like, if you're feeling flustered and overwhelmed, rather just pause, tune back in with self, and, you know, then go from there. And you'll always honor yourself when you are able to slow down, when you're able to speak about what's going on internally, you know. Yeah, it's powerful. And really, like, I'm sure you're on this as well, but, like, my purpose is really to help every woman awaken their womb space so that they can experience these levels of intimacy and depth and connection with self, because gone are the days where we need to feel like we're doing things alone, you know. And that isolation is only coming from that disconnection with self, you know. Because when you're truly connected to your womb and you're truly connected to your heart, you never feel lonely, you know, because you know that you always have the divine guidance.
Mm. Mm. Absolutely. And to really explore ourselves, our bodies, our womb space, equips you with such a deep self-knowing that it becomes quite, it's like untouchable by external forces. And you realize that there's a sacredness that I share with myself, and it completely changes the way you have other relationships. Like with friends, you realize that these people are not supportive of my energy. I don't need to have them in my life because my solitude gifts me with this connection that a false friend can't. Or with a partner who's not honoring your needs or respecting your boundaries, you don't need that person in your life because you are so full and complete as you are, that
Totally.
you don't make space for those connections that don't respect you or don't honor your energy.
Totally. Totally. Oh, this has been such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much. I feel
Oh,
like we'll do another one sometime soon, where we can just speak about pleasure, like, the whole time,
I would
and
love.
embody. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, thank you for having me. It's been so juicy and I'm
uh,
so charged up and
oh,
uplifted.
yes, 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 yes. Fire it up with the power of the womb. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, carry on spreading your light, my angel. And if anyone is not following this angel from my account, please follow her. She's doing amazing work and sharing herself so beautifully. So, yeah, do yourselves a favor and follow her.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you for having me, for sharing your light. It's
Oh,
so beautiful to connect with you again.
no, you too, sweetheart. You too. Oh, bye. Thank you.
Thank you.